Senator, thank you so much for having the time to have this conversation with me. And throughout my work with Autism Workforce Solutions, I focus on the intersection between autism inclusion and economic participation, right? So, a lot of autistic Canadians have strengths in areas like analytical thinking, pattern recognition, deep focus, yet employment outcomes remain extremely low. So at the same time, Canada is facing a labor shortage in sectors that need precisely those skills, right? So I believe there's a real opportunity for policy to better connect the talent with the labor shortage. We have some estimates that suggest that up to 85% of autistic adults are unemployed or underemployed, which represents a huge untapped workforce, right? And at the same time, like there was a study made by Harvard Business that shows that inclusive teams outperform other teams in innovation and productivity, right? So it shows that it is both a social inclusion issue and an economic opportunity. So, from your perspective in the Senate, how can federal policy better support the integration of autistic talent into Canada's workforce and economic growth strategy?
Karina, thank you for having me on your program here, and thank you for taking the time to chat with me, and thank you for the work you do. It's important work, obviously, for the neurodiversity community, but for the country at large. And I know at times it feels like an uphill battle, but perseverance will win out. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you for your commitment. Look, I totally agree with you. The specific area that you're focusing in, I think, is the biggest challenge over the next decade that's going to be facing our country. And that is improving our productivity, getting our economy back on track, and getting certain sectors that are facing labor shortages, everything from in the blue collar sector to the high tech industry, to some other, just for that matter, clerical administrative work at various levels in our economy. We need to use all the resources that are available to us, emulsify it into one powerful workforce in order to overcome the challenges of productivity. I think that Canadian business has a role to play. They have to wake up. Government is asleep on the switch, but so is business. I think the moment they hear autism or neurodiversity challenges, a stereotype naturally kicks in. We got to be honest. And a lot of people don't understand the multitude of levels of neurodiversity that exists with people that are dealing with this issue. And there's a variety of skill sets, a wide range of skill sets. So it does take time for some triage to happen in the private sector, government agencies that are looking for employees. But once they take the time to do the analysis and the triage, and they put people with the skill sets in the right pockets and the right, places, the results are phenomenal. Of course, there are already some programs over the last decade, ready and willing. As you know, there's been government programs in order creating work for autistic people. And they've been huge success stories. I think we got to do a better job at getting the message out that this labor force is available to people. I myself had to go and drag particular small businesses in Montreal to places like Giant Steps and connect them with ready, willing, and able in order to get to the point where they investigated the possibility. It took a little bit of time. Then when they started hiring people on the spectrum, they saw the results immediately. There's a couple of friends of mine in businesses who within a matter of months called me back, says, where can I get more of these workers? Because they're committed. Their deep focus, as you mentioned, is off the charts compared to others, right? You give them a task, they get into the task and they repeat it without any problems. Their deep analytical thinking in many instances is also off the charts. So we need to find a way, those of us in government, to convince government that there's potential out there that's untapped. We need to educate, and it's hard to believe in 2026 that we need to educate the business community that they're looking in the wrong places to resolve some of their labor solutions and problems.
I really appreciate that because I think, yeah, you put it very clearly. Um, in my personal journey, I felt that where, I was so productive and, very um I helped the business a lot. It's just that the people involved are not as knowledgeable about what autism is. And yeah, there is a huge stigma. And I think this definitely needs to change. And that's us going from just awareness to like an actual economic participation, right? Because there are a few policies that do approach and that could help accelerate this. And I do have just three quick ideas, and then you can tell me what you think about it. So, one potential would be a federal neurodiversity employment incentive program. I know we do have some already, but maybe make it a little bit like in a larger scale, with like tax credits or employer training grants and things like that to help the businesses, especially in the private sector, that are interested in hiring neurodiverse talent, but they just don't know how to, or they don't have the money. So a second one would be involving the federal procurement policy, because a lot of the government is the largest purchases of goods and services, right? So they have lots of contracts, and it would be nice if they would award those contracts to companies that do inclusive hiring practices, and that would also include across all industries, right? I think it's also a broader perspective. And the last one, sorry, it's a national autism employment strategy. I know we do have some again, but for example, a lot of autistic people cannot work full time, right? We can work we can focus for like, let's say half a day, but then we need a little bit like to kind of reset and then come back next day, right? So, um, it would be very important, I think, to maybe uh provide policies that do flexible work supports to like reduced hours, but then we're also not in poverty, right? I think that's also very important. We want to participate. And I do see through my company a lot of like employers are interested, right? But once they hear it's what you said, there's like a lot of stigma. They're like, oh, this person is gonna be, troublesome, it's too difficult, too hard. And I think, we all should be kind of collaborating, like the government, employers, and organizations like mine, to help the inclusion and help companies understand we are very good at what we do. It's just we think in a different way. That's it. There's nothing more than it, right? So my question would be, from your perspective, what role do you think the Senate could play in advancing policy conversations around neurodiversity and workforce participation?
Well, we can continue to advocate for all these good things you mentioned and more. I'm very proud of the fact that a couple of years ago I passed F 203, demanding for a framework on autism in Canada. Unfortunately, the government did a half-assed job, if I can be
Yep.
blunt, on it, and they really didn't take advantage of that particular request for a framework in order to build a more solid autism strategy. I felt, and I've been clear, that the autism strategy that the government came out with last year on the eve of a federal election was more of the same old, same old. And you know what they say, when you do the same thing over and over and over again, expecting a different result, that's a definition of insanity.
Mhm.
But more specifically, I do agree with you. From my point of view, I think the two elements that are the most important in getting people to work, people that are dealing with autism. Number one, tax credits are essential. I think they should be generous. I think they should be very, very on a wide scale, available to businesses that hire people with neurodiversity. The second element, I think that's very important, is we need to start putting money into training. And what do I say by that? We tackle youth unemployment at a provincial level and on the federal level. We're funding right now, creating trades programs. We've been doing that for the last decade in order to compensate for the demand in the marketplace for tradespeople. Well, I believe within the confines of those programs, we can invest a little bit more money where people with autism can apply to these centers in specific programs where the triaging aspect and the training aspect could be done at these particular training centers. Could be training somebody to work in a packaging plant, training somebody to work with software for a software company, training somebody who can work in the hospitality business, a wide range of areas where people with neurodiversity can be effective. But like I said, very often businesses don't have the time, the resources in order to do the triage, to do the research on each individual to find out where they fit, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are. It's funny enough, we go through all kinds of interview processes to try to discover that with everybody else. And 66% of the time, businesses get it right. 34% of the time, they get it wrong. I think if we gave businesses an opportunity through these kind of triage training programs, where they get the potential candidate at the door who's already been evaluated, I think it would help accelerate what we're trying to achieve. So
Yep.
those are, I think, the two main. The second one requires a little bit of investment on the part of provincial and federal government, where they sit down and the existing trades programs and at continuing education programs they have in place could be expanded for people with neurodiversity with that perspective, where you're not exactly training them to go into the workforce, you're identifying what their aptitudes are, preparing them for the interview and the potential job in the workforce, and then feed the requirement that's out in the workforce. I know it's a little bit complicated, but I believe that if put a little bit of effort is put into it, the result will be huge. And the unemployment rate amongst neurodiverse people is just off the charts. It's just tremendous potential sitting on home, collecting social benefits when they could be adding to building this country. And the third element I think that's important is, as we know, there's a lot of provincial social programs where families with children and adult children, actually, and adults with autism, the moment they get a job, as you know,
Right.
they get cut off the program. And then it's almost impossible for them to get back to the program. So it's almost like the government is punishing people for trying to take an initiative to become self-sufficient and to become productive members of a society. So that has to be addressed. And again, I was hopeful that the framework that I was trying to get the government to buy into would have led to some of these solutions to some of these challenges.
This is, yes, I always say that you touched on 2 points that that's what I try to tell people in companies. If you figured out what the strengths are of the autistic person, that person will be your best employer. No
100%.
doubt, the best
100%.
employee ever. And so I think they're missing on that. And the last thing you just said is absolutely true. So for example, if you do in my scenario, my partner works, so I also don't qualify. So I'm fully depending on that person. And
Right.
then if that person, for example, decides to leave me tomorrow, I'm left with nothing, right? So I think it's just not a good strategy what we have. And I do think autistic people absolutely want to work, right? We all want to work. We just want to be accepted for how we are and how, our brains function. So,
You wanna contribute to
yep,
the effort with what you have to contribute.
correct.
And we have predetermined, stereotypes sometimes of what people are capable of. You never know. I always use hockey analogies. You never know what a hockey player can do until you put him on the ice and
Yep.
let him play.
Yeah, absolutely. And then with that in mind, I went a step ahead and I wrote a book.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It's a guide on how companies can hire and keep autistic people. It's like literally step by step. So I think we're getting there. It's just we're not getting there fast enough. So that is also why I created Autism Workforce Solutions. It's to help that because I saw, that was a piece that was missing, and I really, really want to change how society sees us. We have so many challenges, and but even then we have the challenges, we can be so good at different jobs, right?
And your business model, I assume it's online.
Mhm. Yeah. So, a little bit of my background. So I worked in the finance sector. I had an amazing manager. She was absolutely great. She knew what autism was, and because she had someone in her family. So, absolutely great. Uh she left the company, and that's when everything went downhill. So, the new people just didn't know how to, accommodate me, and then, I couldn't do it anymore. So after that I was like, no, like, and I tried to reach out, right? I tried all different departments. I tried, nobody had an answer, and they all said, sorry, can't help. So that's why I was like, no, this is a big problem. I'm sure other people feel the same way or are going through the same thing, right? And when I reached out to like different programs, different everything, like, provincial and federal, I do have the disability tax credit. Yes, that was like a blessing. But like other programs, I might not qualify just because I have a partner that works, right? And then meanwhile, like, I'm depending on him. So I was like, no, I will change this. And I decided that that was going to be my mission in life, is to change the way society sees us and to help companies like
Well,
really
good
see the
for
company.
you. Good for you, Karina, because
Yeah.
let me tell you, you are inspirational. You didn't let a little defeat let you, put you down. And I keep telling people perseverance in life is the most important thing. And we got to overcome what I call a terrible infliction that's happening in our society over the last number of years. And it's called a condition called mental numbness. Uh,
Yes.
I'm telling you, and I know it's my wife gets mad because I'm not a physician and I'm not a scientist, and she's in the healthcare field. She'll stop. She says giving people clinical etiquettes and titles, but when it's all said and done, everyone is so consumed in their world they don't take a look left and right to see the possibilities that are there with them. And that's why I said at the beginning of our conversation, it's sad that we still need to educate people.
Mhm.
There's thousands and hundreds of thousands of people on the spectrum in this country that could be very, very powerful contributors. And there's a lot of people who are mildly on the spectrum, as we all know, that are already contributing in society, and because they have certain skill sets and special skill sets that allow them to make special contributions, but they're so mildly on the spectrum, nobody realizes they're autistic,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So nobody wants to invest the time to just go up and down that scale with various individuals, like I do with any one of my employees. I have staff here that works, and what do I do all the time? When they come in early and you put them on a probationary period, you evaluate their skill sets. How far, what's their up, their ceiling, and what's their bottom. That's what every good director does with their employees. So I don't understand why people wouldn't put in the same effort with somebody with neurodiversity skill sets, and then extrapolate those great skill sets. Like I said, a couple of my close friends who are in the business, but they were open to this world because it was something that I had the privilege of discovering.
Mhm.
But we got to keep at it. We got to break down barriers. We got to overcome prejudices that people have. And we need to keep making demonstrations of how this can work. So, in terms of tax credits, you have an ally in me. I continue to advocate for that, and I will. And now that we had this discussion, I think I'm going to follow up with a letter to the Minister of Finance, who I know pretty well, Minister Champagne, and point out to him that number one, we should focus on tax credits. Number two, we should start funding as a federal government special training and continuing education and adult education programs, but fund them in a way where they're available to people on the spectrum who can come in, be evaluated,
Mhm.
given minimal training, and then try to make those connections with the employers that are having a hard time filling positions. And I've seen people on the spectrum who've gone into settings where they're doing jobs that that particular business for months, if not years, couldn't find somebody to do the work.
Exactly. Yep. I think
And of course, you know, you've heard that the Ministry of Defense in Israel, you know, that they have full departments that are
with
being run by people on the spectrum
yep.
because they have discovered they have certain skill sets that they can't find amongst others who are not on the spectrum.
Yep.
So here's an example of a nation and a government that took the time to investigate, to research, and is harnessing that potential.
Yes. That's all we need is just give us a chance. So I'm really, really happy that at least we have someone there high up like you that, you know, are kind of speaking out for us, and that is kind of what we need. And I really do appreciate all the work you do. And if you ever need anything, I'm here. And if, you know, people in the Senate have questions, they can always reach out to me, and hopefully we can change everything.
Well, we should arrange for you to come visit the Senate. Let me tell you this, when I first came here in 2009, there
Mhm.
was I won't say very few, but there was less, a smaller number of advocates for autism than there is today in 2026. There's a lot of allies.
Yeah.
Right now, are the group of senators that are fighting for this cause. Peter Beam is the one that comes to mind. Senator Bernard, Wanda Bernard, and the list goes on, and Senator Burry. Uh, I'm missing names. So the fantastic and the heartwarming thing is that there's many allies we have in the Senate and the House of Commons. So I know it's taking a long time for us to get to where we want to be, but we will get there because of perseverance. So thank you for giving me the time to chat with you. I'm always available to you, whatever you need. And like I said, whenever you want to pay us a visit here in Ottawa and visit Parliament, it would be my pleasure with my colleagues to show you around.
That'd be amazing. I've never been, so
Oh,
definitely
let's
I'll
do it.
take you up on that. So I appreciate your time. Thank you so
Thank you so
much.
much. God bless you.
Okay,
Thank you.
bye-bye.